Aloha! The gizmos we are going to talk about are two smartphones. Redmi Note 12s and POCO M5s. The devices are very similar, both in appearance and parameters. In this video I will try to highlight the differences between the phones. There are already enough thorough reviews of characteristics. A detailed list of functionality is available on countless sites. I propose to talk about the key differences in comparison. The gadgets have very similar characteristics, suitable for the category of people who need a universal assistant for every day. Both phones have a slot for two SIM card and a memory card. Not hybrid. SIM and flash can be installed simultaneously. Such a slot is now a rarity, especially if the phone also has a wide-angle lens in the camera module. Manufacturers call it super wide angle. Usually the slot is hybrid. Either put a second SIM card or memory card. In both smartphones are installed AMOLED displays. There is a 3.5mm mini jack for headphones. Immediately note that the gadgets do not have a 5G module. But even if you were looking for a smartphone with it, do not hurry to stop considering these models. After all, think for a second, for what we need 5G internet speed? Only for downloading large amounts of information. For example, if you need to constantly receive and send gigabytes on professional activities. For watching movies and videos online in good quality, 4G speed is enough. If you categorically need the speed of the internet the 5th generation, it makes sense to abandon the presence of wide-angle camera lens. Then the choice of smartphones is much wider. But this is a different story. There are also Samsung A24 and Redmi Note 12 on the market of smartphones, with a separate slot of SIM cards and flash drives. The first one will be $30 more expensive than our heroes in the maximum configuration. Korean will have less memory, 128GB against 8 and 256 at the China manufacturer, and one mono speaker. Redmi 12 for the same money will have the same amount of memory, a slightly lower camera resolution of 50 megapixels against 108 in Note 12s and 64 in POCO, but it is far from the fact that it will affect the quality of shooting in real life. A larger display, almost an inch in diagonal, one hand cannot hold it, and the same one mono speaker, but the refresh rate of the display will be 120 Hz. Samsung, by the way, has 90, getting ahead just like the first tested Note 12s. POCO has 60 Hz, but with the DC dimming, a flicker reduction technology for eye comfort. By the way, there is also a modification with 5G for Redmi Note 12, but without the wide-angle camera. This is an illustration of widening the choice when looking for a suitable communicator. And again, we come back to the question, is 5G so necessary? After all, even not in all regions of our planet, networks of the 5th generation have stable coverage. And the lack of 5G module is far from being synonymous with the complete lack of internet connection. To summarize, Note 12s and POCO M5s for those who care, two SIM and flash card at the same time, wide-angle camera, headphone jack, AMOLED display, stereo speakers. If we give up something, the choice expands. Even appear models with 5G. That's how manufacturers are forced to compromise. I would even say specifically confuse buyers, not allowing you to buy a device at once with all the benefits of the gadget industry. Of course, managers and marketers of manufacturers will find an excuse for this reproach. Buyers will say, why do you need wire headphones? That's so last century. They will say to the directorial boards of their companies, let's save a penny on the module, simplify the realization of moisture protection of the gadget. Without an extra hole it is easier to do it, and most importantly cheaper in terms of cost. So we will also release a line of Bluetooth Super Duper Originals suitable for the design of wireless headsets. In the end, the results is visible, the reasons are clear. Exterior view. The screens of the phones are 6.43 inches. The gadgets are small, quite thin. Even with the case, the thickness is about 9 mm. It's comfortable to hold. It's even possible to fully use with one hand. At Redmi, in my opinion, the body looks more premium, fully matte with sharper outlines than at POCO. The silver sloping frame of the second smartphone will not appeal to everyone. The back covers are similarly shimmering with shades of the main color, something reminiscent of a holographic picture. IP53 degree protection is declared only for POCO, but in fact Redmi also has it. Protects from dust, small splashes, and allows short-term use in drizzling rain. On the speakers can be seen protective membranes and sealing rubber bands on the slots of SIM flash cards. The positions of each cards are separated, which is the highlight of this model. The headphone jack on the Redmi is located on the top, on the POCO on the bottom. The first option, in my opinion, is not very convenient. If a person standing or sitting uses the phone, in most cases it happens so, the headphone wire sucks down between it and the smartphone. It was logical to run the cable from the bottom edge of the gadget in this case. Options where the top connection can be convenient, in my opinion, is the position lying on the couch in the evening and then in the side and the use of one hand, especially the left. In POCO the connector will get in the way, maybe even loose if used in this way all the time. The camera modules are different, 108 megapixels on the Redmi and 64 on the POCO. The first phone has 3 lenses, the second one has 4. The macro camera is placed in a separate module, while on Redmi its function is taken over by the main camera. In POCO the whole optical module can be easily covered with one protective glass. To avoid damage, all lenses are at the same level. In Redmi the main one protrudes out, and you will have to use a separate protective glass or film for it. By the way, to protect phones I think it's reasonable to take cases covers with shockproof seals on the corners. Displays. Let's switch on the gadgets. To make the identically complete, we'll change the round POCO icons to square, Redmi style icons, by changing the theme to MIUI 11 for example. The 12S display has a higher contrast ratio compared to POCO, and in general compared to the AMOLED displays I have ever seen. This doesn't always have a positive effect on media content playback. For example, let's go into the mode of selecting the desktop background. On photos with a smooth change of shades of the same color, sharp stepped borders of shades begin to appear, though they are not present in reality. It's clearly visible on the photo with gradually changing sky color. The change of shades on Note 12S occurs natural steps, but if you view photos with a sharp variety of colors, increased contrast is preferable. The photo on the right looks juicier. Let's see how the video is perceived.
This board is broken.
Redmi makes the picture look artificial, less three-dimensional than on POCO. The faces of the characters get unnatural sharp outlines. The scenes on the video seem to lose perspective. Volume is lost. The image seems flat, at least flatter than on POCO. However, the more contrast display is less tiring the eyes. That's subjective, of course, but personally it is so for me. I think it is just because the white color on Redmi with a higher contrast display is reproduced as slightly grayish rather than true white. In POCO there is an additional option, eliminate flicker, DC dimming, designed to reduce the strain on the eyes when lowering the brightness of the screen. But I didn't notice any positive effect from using it. I repeat, it's individual. The screen refresh rates of Redmi and POCO are 90 and 60 Hz respectively. This positively affects the smoothness of scrolling of the first one. You can see that on POCO the text slightly twitches at the beginning of scrolling. In fact, I think this is not such a critical flaw. In reality, we scroll through the content in iterations, with constant stops to see details. For example, the price of a product on a marketplace. It's only during a closer examination of monotonous text that the jerking of the 60 Hz image becomes noticeable. Cameras. Let's start with the photo mode. Optionally available shooting at 108 and 64 megapixels for Redmi and POCO respectively. But these values don't give any impressive results. It's more of marketing ploy, and are available optionally with 4:3 aspect ratio. These megapixels will not make things worse for us, the buyers, but it should be remembered that it isn't worth using these numbers as a comparative characteristics of smartphone cameras, although it seems is, at first glance, the simplest solution. In standard automatic modes, Redmi shoots at 9 megapixels in 16:9 mode and 12 megapixels in 4:3 mode. POCO, on the other hand, shoots 12 and 16 megapixels at similar settings. To understand, impressive values 108 and 64 megapixels declared in smartphone cameras should work together with good optics and competent algorithms of signal conversion from the camera sensor. Then it will be possible to get a high-quality image, even in standard automatic shooting modes. After all, each of the 108 in Redmi and in POCO 64 megapixels of the matrices work all the time in any modes. This is just a software merge of several neighboring pixels into one, in Redmi every 9 and in POCO every 4 points, if I counted correctly, and it should be more favorable than getting information at once on a single pixel of a simple 9 or 12 megapixels camera. Ideally, noise, ripples, graininess in photos and videos in low light is reduced and clarity of object boundaries is increased. But all this, I repeat, will work only in a set with good optics and competent digitization. Here its bundle works poorly. At least the results do not impress as much as the number of megapixels, more than 50 for POCO and over 100 for Redmi. For me, so any Samsung Galaxy S4 or 5 about 10 years ago shoot almost the same. But that's not what this is about, it's about comparing. Continued. Photography. Let's see if it makes sense to use the maximum resolution mode on the Redmi camera. Let's take a photo with 108 megapixels. Zoom in. The lighting is normal, not too bright, not too dim, overcast. Now the photo at standard settings. Maximum zoom. The photo on the left is clearer, slightly, but still better. Let's evaluate the 64 megapixels POCO footage. The weather is also cloudy. The illumination of the objects is normal. Now the same thing in standard mode. Zoom in. Let's compare. There is almost no difference. The 12 megapixels photo is even a light brighter. Next, let's look at the results of the smartphone cameras in similar modes. Outdoors in good lighting, Redmi pictures have more saturated shades of dark tones. Because of this, people's faces in most 12S photos do not look as favorable as they do in POCO. Dark details are overemphasized. This result is unnatural, overly pronounced shadows and wrinkles on faces. Without color correction, the photos look darker. But in the case of poor natural light, the Redmi Note outperforms the POCO. Faces and all fine details are reproduced more clearly. The color range of the image is better. When it comes to capturing details of bright and dark subjects equally well, the 12S is also a leader, both in auto mode and with HDR turned off, an assistant of preserving details of objects that differ dramatically in illumination. In night mode the results is more informative, but darker overall. Consider photographs taken in the dark. In the absence of the lighting and under electric light. In my opinion, Redmi is again preferable. The pictures are clearer, more saturated, more volumetric because of the greater color. Photos from wide-angle cameras in moderate light are virtually indistinguishable. In artificial light in automatic mode it is difficult to favor one of the smartphones. In portrait mode from the distance of about 10 cm, Redmi is the clear leader. But at a distance of more than 30 cm, POCO is preferable. Macro shooting is definitely the leader in the Note 12S. I would like to remind you that it uses the main camera module, while POCO uses a separate macro lens for this purpose. Video shooting. Redmi Note 12S in auto mode shoots at Full HD resolution, 920 by 1080 pixels, and 30 frames per second. HD mode 1280 to 720 pixels, and the same frame rate is also available. POCO has more modes, but by default only HD with a frame rate of 30 is activated. Full HD modes are also available at 30 and 60 frames per second and 4K, Ultra HD 3840 x 2160, which is a bit short of true 4K quality 4096 to 2160 pixels. When shooting in Full HD in good light, both phones have digital image stabilization. In Redmi its realization is slightly but better. The diaphragm also works smoother when the light changes. When shooting 4K and Full HD at 60 frames per second, the POCO has no digital stabilization. In M5s from Pro mode it is possible to use macro lens. With autofocus there are no problems. In Redmi, however, close-up shooting is done with the main camera. In auto mode the focus is constantly strained, and an acceptable image can be obtained only with the manual focus control. In indoor lighting as well as in outdoor lighting, we can observe a jump-like response of the POCO camera to changes in scene illumination. The camera's focus shifts from close to far objects are equally fast and correct. Activate macro shooting from the automatic modes of the cameras. The results are similar. Once again, POCO has sharp diaphragm operation. In low light at M5s, expectedly insignificantly, but slightly worse, triggers the algorithm of digital stabilization and jumps to adjust the brightness of the picture to the lighting. Wide-angle cameras, on the other hand, capture images less brightly than the main smartphone cameras, with the image from the POCO camera being slightly brighter than on the Redmi, just like when shooting with the main lens. By the way, the M5s case slightly blocks the view of the wide lens. Check this point when buying such an accessory. The Full HD 60 FPS and 4K modes of POCO work roughly due to the lack of stabilization.
Well, I don't really feel like it anymore. I haven't warmed up enough to drink. Do you want a glass, Wolf?
Давай.
Come on!
Мы
We drove and finally arrived.
Наливай.
I want to lay out some bread, and on the bread I'll put this sausage.
Тут столик, лавочка.
There is a table, a bench, and a river, almost mountainous.
You can have a bathhouse and dive.
Да?
Yes, yes, yes. This is where you should put the bathhouse. Yes, a field bath. Beautiful. Sound. Let's listen to some clips. The sound of POCO is unequivocally better in all respects. You can improve the sound on Redmi with the help of the special programs. Let's try one of them. Increase the gain and raise the bass frequencies. The sound is more or less equalized, but in reality you have to adjust the playback almost for each song separately, otherwise there will be wheezing and distortion, and if you overdo it with amplification you can even ruin the speaker. Conclusions. Note 12s looks more premium. It won't slip out when used with one hand. POCO can because of the sloping shape of the case. The display is more contrasty, eyes get tight less, subjectively. There are few camera modes, but those that there are available work more professionally. The diaphragm closes more smoothly, stabilization is better, at dusk the sharpness of object is higher. The pictures are darker, without overlighting, but you may need color correction. Screen scrolling is smoother, 9Hz refresh rate. The headphone jack is on top, which is kind of old-fashioned. There is a sense in using 108 megapixels mode. Pictures are of higher quality. POCO M5s will appeal to the connoisseurs of the first iPhones, both designed with rounded edges and chrome bezel around the perimeter. By the way, I'm personally among them. Those iPhones look really cool to me, or maybe they were just perceived as something outlandish and super premium. Contrast and brightness of the screen is normal, absolutely natural color rendition, as much as possible natural color rendition of AMOLED displays. The picture is three-dimensional with any variance of composition and color feeling. By the way, a wider choice of accessories, such as covers, overlays, bumpers. The model was released earlier than the competitor month to 8. The camera has more modes. In auto, took out of pocket, press the button, put in the pocket, immediately takes pictures bright, juicy, although sometimes overlit. For viewing without processing on the phone screen is preferable. The sound is louder, more powerful, more voluminous. Headphone jack at the bottom, for me this is more convenient. Both smartphones are noteworthy items, but the choice is yours. Here such a thing. Aloha everyone!